It might be incredibly difficult for anyone today to imagine that life on our planet was once different from what it is today. Of course, you can imagine yourself as a knight from the Middle Ages, or even a Viking, thanks to historical movies and TV shows. But what about the time when there were no humans on Earth at all? And what about the distant ancestors of humans who lived in the distant past and are not even remembered by Hollywood? Welcome to Feral Finds, where truth meets mystery and reality intertwines with fantasy. Well, while scientists haven't invented a time machine, I suggest you take a look at the history of our planet with your own eyes. First of all, let's go back to the past 4.6 billion years ago. Our Earth didn't exist yet. There was only a protostar and a ring of gas and dust. An incredibly beautiful scene, but we're interested in something slightly different. Fast forward a bit. Around 4.54 billion years ago, our planet formed and was far from being habitable. Conditions on Earth were truly hellish. Instead of the usual landscapes, there was a sea of fire and molten rocks. There were radioactive elements everywhere, and the surface temperature reached 4,700 degrees Celsius. Instead of air, there was carbon dioxide, nitrogen, sulfur, and water vapor. Instead of solid ground, there were rocky oceans. Add to that the continuous bombardment from large asteroids, and you get a picture resembling the end of Earth rather than its beginning. A few million years later, as a result of a collision with a young planet called Theia, the Moon gradually formed. A day back then lasted about 6 hours. During this period, having anything was simply impossible. From around 3.9 billion years ago to 3.8 billion years ago, the late heavy bombardment hit Earth with an enormous number of asteroids. Some scientists suggest that there were already oceans on Earth despite the high temperature. The asteroids added a tiny amount of moisture and delivered it to Earth. Thus, over billions of years, about half of the global ocean's water came to Earth from space. After the bombardment ended, about 3.8 billion years ago, Earth's temperature slowly began to drop. But the existing forms of life couldn't survive on the planet's surface in any case because there was no oxygen in its atmosphere and no ozone layer to block ultraviolet rays. There are fossils about 3.5 billion years old, indicating that life on Earth might have originated much earlier. 2.5 billion years ago, the first supercontinent Kenorland began to form. Fast forward a bit more, 1.5 billion years ago, Earth's days now lasted at least 16 hours. Despite the absence of complex life forms, tectonic plates continued to move. And after 400 million years, another supercontinent, Rodinia, formed. And over time, Pangaea. About 650 million years ago, according to a popular theory, our planet was literally a snowball. This theory is called Snowball Earth. Scientists believe that everything was completely covered in ice. But even under a thick layer of ice, the planet maintained a relatively high temperature. No ice age could kill volcanoes, and the carbon dioxide from their eruptions gradually melted the glaciers. About 541 million years ago, the Cambrian explosion occurred. Temperatures rising to 30 degrees Celsius and a record concentration of oxygen led to the emergence of a vast number of living organisms. Biodiversity was so impressive that some creatures developed exoskeletons to protect themselves from being eaten by others. Researchers believe that all existing animal types appeared during this period. 450 million years ago, plants and arthropods began actively invading the land. 419 million years ago, the first insects appeared. About 300 million years ago, Swamps occupied most of our planet. Some plants reached heights of 30 meters, 98 feet, and giant insects flew everywhere thanks to the high concentration of oxygen. 252 million years ago, the Permian extinction event occurred, destroying 96% of marine species and 73% of terrestrial vertebrate species. Likely, numerous eruptions caused the extinction. The air was filled with ash and carbon dioxide. There was little sunlight, and lava flowed everywhere. Anyone would die in this environment. Then came the dinosaurs to replace the destroyed species. But it wasn't just giant dinosaurs that divided the planet among themselves. The continents were also moving. About 175 million years ago, Pangaea began to break apart, and the Atlantic Ocean and other oceans appeared, and the world started to take its current shape. At this time, you could find the first pine trees, praying mantises, and bees. 50 million years ago, power on the planet shifted to mammals. Without dinosaurs, they began to feel free and actively spread across the planet, evolving with all their might. Meanwhile, the length of the day reached nearly 24 hours, and the temperature remained steady at around 24 degrees Celsius, 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Around 8 to 4 million years ago, according to scientists, a significant split occurred, and as the legend goes, each went their evolutionary way. About 4 million years ago, the climate on this planet changed again. Of course, this didn't happen overnight, but the climate is what turned part of the dense forest into a savanna. According to legend, this is what made our distant ancestors climb down from the trees, stand upright, and start looking for food. Humans weren't the only ones who began fighting for survival. Many tried to adapt to the changes, but in the end, only humans succeeded to the extent that they invented tools, the wheel, and Netflix. 1.4 million years ago, humans began colonizing Eurasia. 790,000 years ago, they already knew how to use fire. It's hard to calculate the exact population of Earth during this period. As you know, there was no census back then. And then, about 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens appeared. They began to fill the entire Earth so actively that they still can't stop. As the legend goes, if the number of our ancestors about 130,000 years ago ranged between 100,000 and 300,000 individuals, then 40,000 years ago, the logical expansion of humans covered almost the entire planet. Today, the world's population is 7.8 billion and continues to grow. However, the planet is changing along with its inhabitants, and who knows what historical shift awaits us in the future. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and click on the bell to receive notifications of new exciting videos waiting for you in the future. Peace.